You are ready to go.
Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meeting by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Mapo people. Please join our hands in finding ways to support Indigenous communities. We have some suggested links below, and we'd always like to add more.
So for the agendas in the consent agenda, I need to add item number 6, approval of closure requests for the planning board for the motion made at last night's planning board meeting. And then also on the business agenda, item number 4. This is the discussion about the proposal to change the affordable housing law. Item number 5, discussion about the vacancy rate study. Item number 8 to be added, a resolution regarding the CDBG sewer projects. And item number 9 to be added, a resolution of the village board adopting a labor standards officer for the purpose of the Office of Community. This is also related to the CDBG sewer project. I move that we accept the business agenda as amended. I move that we accept the consent agenda as amended, and I move the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye.
We didn't vote on the first one. I guess we voted on welcome, right?
What?
We got a second for the changes, but we didn't all vote aye.
Okay, friendly amendment from Stana. We all vote to amend the business agenda. Aye.
Aye.
And then announcements. Go ahead, Stana. Do number 2, Lieutenant Scott Butler.
So the New Paltz Police Department's Lieutenant Scott Butler is retiring after 28 years of service in law enforcement. His final walkout ceremony will be Friday, December 29th at the New Paltz Police Department, and all are invited to attend at 2:45 p.m. to send him off. Also, Kwanzaa celebration hosted by the Margaret Wade Lewis Center at Redeemer Lutheran Church on Saturday, December 30th. From 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And for more information, we have a link where you can sign up, and there's a suggested donation, but everyone is welcome, and it's a really wonderful celebration every year, and I hope lots of people will join in.
Did you do the closure of Village Hall?
No, I think
Okay.
that village offices will be closed Friday, December 22nd, Monday, December 25th, Tuesday, December 26th, Friday, December 29th. And village offices will open for normal business hours Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. I'm also going to do the announcement to remind people that the Free Food Bridge is open here next to Village Hall at 25 Plattekill Avenue, 24/7. If you have anything to share, please check the do's and don'ts, Millions of Butterflies, and click on the Free Food Bridge and come and get whatever you need. Hopefully you have locked in there when you need something.
I'll add to your announcements, Donna, that Family New Paltz is always looking for donations, not just in season clothes, but food as well as financial donations. They do great work in helping folks pay bills and do some helping them with extra funding as needed. Obviously, Family of New Paltz just finished the turkey trot, which is a big fundraising part for them, but they really are in need all season long, especially as we're coming into the colder winter months. So keep family on your giving list if you can.
Another announcement that I had is we received news today. So at our last meeting, the village board announced that we were hoping to submit a grant application to New York State Water Resources Institute. We got a note that they appreciated that we submitted a letter of intent to apply, but they said, no, thanks. They were not interested in receiving a full proposal from us because they received so many other amazing letters of intent. And so then when I added that to the announcements, can you just delete that bullet that says as in previous years? That was just cut and pasted extraneously. And then we have a couple of planning board public hearings coming up January 2nd. This is related to 11 Water Street, the site plan review of the hotel with cafe. And then February 6th, the public hearing for New Paltz Apartments will continue. And this public hearing is about the draft environmental impact statement that was adjourned at the December 5th meeting and will resume at that February 6th planning board meeting. Is Tricia here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Tricia.
Hello.
Thanks for
Sorry, I'm
joining
a
us. Let's
little, little
hear
under the
update
weather, but
from our Ulster County legislator. Sorry, you're not feeling well.
yes. No, that's okay. So this is my very last month on the legislature, and Limina will be starting in January. So I'm excited to hand off.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for at least giving me the opportunity. It was eye-opening. We are like the two major things that are coming up on as resolutions is upping the bed tax from 2% to 4%, and that's going to be voted on tomorrow in tomorrow's session. And also passing the county charter. So we had a charter revision committee that spent, I think about over a year meeting and updating the charter with all of the previous suggestions that have collected over the years. And so that's now in the charter. We are being asked to pass it. I think that I'm going to be a yes vote on it, but there's definitely some things in the charter that members of the Charter Commission are not happy with, but all of those, anything in the charter is open for an amendment by the future body. So I will be a yes on that.
Tricia, I have a question about that. Do you anticipate any amendments tomorrow evening?
There will probably be some amendments. I think there was some concerns raised by the planning board chair on how that appointment is currently stipulated in the charter, and I think there will be an amendment to that coming to the floor.
That's the director of planning, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And the first piece that you mentioned, do you know have any feeling for how that's going to go? Not the charter.
On the bed tax, I have no idea how the bed tax is.
How you're going to vote?
I'm going to vote yes. I know that we have had members of the business community come forward to raise objections from going to 2% to 4%, but all of the surrounding counties are 4% or 5%. So it's, we're not doing anything unusual. The concern was raised by all-inclusive resorts that, they provide a service above and beyond just room. And so I think there might be an amendment for that. I'm not sure who is sponsoring that. But I will be voting for the 4%. I think that we have talked a lot in this body about putting money aside for affordable housing, and this is one way that we can do that. And so I don't want to postpone it. Once we pass it, however, if additional amendments need to be made, that can be made when the new legislature session starts next year.
Thanks again, Tricia. I agree with you on that, and I appreciate all of your service. You've been great.
Tricia, I have a question. So does that bed tax, does that apply to short-term rentals? Like Airbnb?
I think the governor has, so there is something sitting on the governor's desk about short-term rental. I don't know the exact wording for it, but I can share the amendment or what's sitting there with you. I don't believe it's short-term rental. I think it's just hotel and motels. Are you looking to see if it affects Airbnb?
Yeah, that's what I was asking about.
Or that I don't know. Let me look at the wording and send that to you via email.
Okay.
I want to say 90 days. If you're there for 90 days, then it doesn't apply, but let me verify that first.
Okay. Anything else before we?
Just quick question. Tricia's, I read somewhere local law 9 on appointment of legislators. Is that going to be an amendment, or what's your stance on that?
I believe that passed in the last session, but let me look
What
it
is
up
it
and
now?
email it to you.
Appointing
Like
a
it was in the
conflict-
consenting agenda.
Oh, okay. That would be in the charter.
It's a charter issue.
So the charter is being voted on tomorrow, and that amendment, I believe, came to the floor and passed.
Oh, it did already. Okay.
Yes, but I can share that with you via email as well.
I'm a little confused because they say it's on the 21st and they vote on these things.
So yeah, the 21st is, so we had a session on the 18th, which is our regular session, and then now we have a special session on the 21st. So we passed a majority of the items on the 18th, and then we have this special session on the 21st for the two remaining items, the bed tax and the charter.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything else,
All
Tricia?
right. Nope, that is it. All right, thanks
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good holiday.
Is
Yep.
Mark Lauer,
You too, have a good holiday. Bye.
is Mark Lauer with us?
Tim, I'm here.
Hey, Mark, how are you? So we have 3 public hearings. Do we have to open them individually? How do you want to proceed?
I think we have 2 separate public hearings, one for each of the 2 CDBG projects that are winding down. I think I'd like to give a very short introduction for each and then open it for public comment. Then when you're satisfied with comment, close, and we'll start the second one. So I'm Mark Blauer. I'm a grants consultant working for the village. The village is currently operating 4 community development block grant projects. These are projects that the village has competed for successfully the last 4 years. I will, for simplicity, call them the 2020, the 2021, the 2022, and the 2023 projects. The 2023 project was just announced last month. And 2 projects, the 2021 and 2022, are currently underway with Amity Construction. The first one that we're going to cover as a performance hearing, a required hearing at the end of a project, is the project known as 793 PR 115-20. That was a project awarded to the village in May of 2021. The grant amount was $808,875,000. It was a grant to continue remedial work related to sewer main installation and or relining to comply with the consent order from the DEC. And specifically, the 20 project had worked on installing or relining sewer mains and manholes within the rights of way and or easements of Orchard Lane, South Chestnut Street, Overlook Road, and Mohonk Avenue. The contractor was TAM Enterprises. They finished their work this summer. All work is completed, and the completed project has put us in a good position to continue complying with the consent order. And the result of our work is that we have not been fined any further by DEC because we are complying with the consent order. So that project is completed successfully. And I would like, if we could have the village board open the public hearing to public comment. And it would help if people who have comments to let us know who they are, where they live, so we can record their comments for the minutes that we'll provide to the state. Thank you.
Okay, so I move that we open the public hearing for project letters and numbers 115-20. All in favor? Any public comment? I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Do you want to introduce the next one?
I
All
will,
in favor?
Tim.
Okay, go ahead.
Again, this is a community development block grant program that was awarded to us by the Office of Community Renewal in Albany. They received their money from the U.S. Congress through the U.S. Department of HUD. Each year, the Office of Community Renewal has a competition. In 2021, we were successful a second time that year with a second award in November of 2021. And the project number is 793 PR 80-21. That grant amount was $918,750. The work area is slightly different, but has the same intent to continue the installation and or relining of sanitary sewer facilities to comply with the DEC consent order. In this case, it was related to work within existing rights-of-way or easements of Huguenot Street, Tricor Avenue, and Colonial Drive. The contractor on this project is Amity Construction. The work is ongoing now. The work is essentially complete and will be wrapped up between now and January 5th. We currently have drawn all but $343,800 of that grant. And our expectation is that with an invoice from the contractor, once it's approved by Bernier and Larios, we'll be drawing the balance of grant funds in January. In all probability, we'll have a final invoice from the contractor for consideration at the village board meeting. I believe you have one on January 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So again, this is another occasion where we've used grant money, and that's very competitive, by the way, in order to continue complying with the consent order to minimize the cost to local residents. The consent order, if we did not get grants to do this work, would be costing the village residents a fair bit more. We've been doing most of this work, fortunately, with grant money. So again, that's the status of that project. People living on those streets have probably seen the work. We've worked very closely with an archaeologist to make sure that the area on Huguenot Street is well documented in terms of any artifacts that might be dug up in that area. To my knowledge, nothing has been found of interest, but we are monitoring the trenching in that area. So the project is winding down successfully, and this is an opportunity for the public to give any question the project or give any comments they would wish to give.
Mark, I have a question. So we got a note from the contractor about some piping that was tuberculated, and it was more trouble than they anticipated in the Huguenot Street section. Did that,
I heard of that through Bernier and Larios that a subcontractor to Amity Construction reported that problem.
do you know if that triggered a change order?
I had spoken at length to John Davidson today about the project. And I don't know, unless you have a change order in front of you tonight, it hasn't turned into a change order yet.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move that we open the public hearing for this project 115-21. All in favor, aye. Any public comments, feedback that we received? I move that we close the public hearing. All in favor? Anything else, Mark?
Just a quick aside for the village board, the 2022 project is ongoing again with Amity Construction. That one is not, that contract actually expires technically in November of 2024, but we're going to complete the project well before that deadline. And the 2023 project announced in November is we have the grant agreement for that project, and myself and the village clerk's office are working, as we have in other years, to get the documentation into the state to get that project up and running. So that project would be designed in early 2024 and would be no doubt bid sometime later in 2024 to again demonstrate to the DEC that we are complying with the consent order and doing everything we can to eliminate or reduce infiltration and inflow into the sanitary sewer system. The next opportunity to apply for funding for this program will be in July, so it's probably not too early to work with our Public Works Director, Blue, and our engineering firm, Bernier and Larios, to consider the next project, which will be coming up very quickly in the summer. Otherwise, I appreciate the opportunity to continue serving the village.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Have a good evening, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Take care.
I move that we open the public hearing for the amendments to the affordable housing law. All in favor? Anyone want to make a public comment?
Thank you. My name is Terry Dolan, 58 South Manheim Boulevard. I'm also the chair of the Village Affordable Housing Board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I know there's proposals in front of you to change the ordinance. One of the proposals is to have, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail of this, but I do want to hit some of the highlights. There's one proposal to have tiered income levels. We would focus on people who have incomes below 40%, 60%, and 80%. I think that's a great idea. Obviously, increasing the percentage of affordable housing from 10% overall to a combined 10%, 15%, depending on the number of units built. I also think that's a great idea. If we're going to change the if we're going to change the income levels, in my opinion, we're going to have to address the maximum rents. The maximum rent in that ordinance is a fixed number determined by the AMI, by the average mean income of people in Ulster County. If we're going to allow people to be determined eligible who make 40% of the AMI, the rents will be too high for them to ever afford it. Let me just give you one quick example. A family of two, which is a common family of people who have applied for service under this ordinance to the village right now. At 40% of the AMI, their maximum income would be $32,000 per year. Their rent, however, would be $1,332. That would be far in excess of what they could ever afford. So anyway, if we're going to change the income levels, we need to change the rent levels. A question was raised by the mayor about the tax assessment. The tax assessment is addressed in the ordinance. and it says that the town assessor shall, not may, shall take into consideration that there are affordable units in the development. Obviously, from the developer's point of view, that's less rent. That should be reflected in the tax assessment. The ordinance currently addresses that, but if there's a way to make it even stronger so that you don't have tax appeals in the future, that would be fine as well. One of the things that's missing in the ordinance, I think it was just an oversight, I'll be honest with you. I don't think there was anything malicious about this, but there's a point schedule for things like village residents, members of the ambulance squad, school district employees. For some reason, there's nothing there about the volunteer fire company. I would strongly recommend that you include the volunteer fire company in that, similar to the way the ambulance squad is referenced in there. There's a limit to the number of months of service, which kind of makes some sense. But anyway, I think they should be included for priority points as well. And not just, but everybody in the company. Some companies, and I don't know about the one in this village, some companies have firefighters, some people have fire police. Everybody should be included in that. One of the things that has come up at the planning board recently, there's a reference in the ordinance that says a developer can put in a different appliance or different interior hardware in an apartment that is affordable versus everybody else. Not sure why it's there. There were 2 applications last night at the planning board where this came up. Both developers unequivocally said, no, it's all going to be the same. So I'd recommend we take that out. There's really no need for that, in my opinion. And experience showed us last night that there's no need for it. And finally, there's one of the most cumbersome parts of this ordinance that we found the last time we used it, which was at Zero Place. The list of people who've applied can be quite old. There's people there that have applied 3-4 years ago. If they come to the top of the list, they have to recertify their income to us so that we know that their income is the same as it was the last time they applied. The way this thing works, the way the ordinance is written, if a person applied 2 weeks ago and now they pop to the top of the list, which can happen, which I can tell you will happen once people know there's affordable units coming, many more people will apply. Unfortunately, even 2 weeks later, they have to go back through and recertify their income. Now, again, there's nothing malicious in that. It was a simple oversight. I would just add that there would be a 120-day grace period. That's something that the other organizations who run affordable housing programs similar to this use. You apply within 120 days, your income isn't going to change very much in all probability. So we could at least do that. It would help us move people along quicker through the process. With that, let me also say, and I know this is off the topic and we're not supposed to do this, but there is affordable housing component. Last night at the planning board, the board approved 2 housing projects here in town, all apartments, over 110 apartments. There'll be 7 to 5, there'll be 12 new affordable units in there. And I have to credit the village board for this because this is an enormous investment on the part of 2 developers to build that much housing in this village all at the same time. And developers only do that, in my opinion, because of stability. They've seen what you've done. They've looked at it over the years, and the people will invest in a community that is stable like the village of New Paltz. And that's to your credit that they did that. And luckily, we're going to get more affordable units out of it. And I'm not sure, but maybe some of this ordinance could apply to those. I don't know. I have no idea. It would be nice. But with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
So much.
So those are your personal notes, but then you are also chair of the Affordable Housing Board. You guys are going to meet in Jan, and then are you going to formalize them, massage them with your colleagues and submit them to us?
I can do that.
Great.
Yes, we're meeting on the 11th of January. So yes, we can do that.
Thank you. You want to make a public comment?
Talking about, am can I do that?
Only as a public comment.
In this.
So you'd have to like
hearing.
come up and state your name and you can ask a question,
And that's part of
definitely.
this hearing, because we're.
But you got to come up to the table so we can record.
You finished?
Yes,
Okay. Here, here. My name is Leila Basil, and I live at 10 Rosemary Court in New Paltz. My question is, where are these affordable homes going to be built? Do we know what area?
The two apartment complexes
Yeah.
that Terry was talking about.
Mhm.
So those are at 145 and 137 North Chestnut.
And they're
So
not affordable
the-
units,
the-
and of course it has to be based on our affordable housing law.
Okay. Okay, that was my question to what you were talking about.
So like in terms of landmarks, it's the former Agway site and the former
Right.
Gateway site.
Okay.
Just a follow-up to Terry. In a brief couple of sentences, how does an assessor credit a developer on this affordable? Is there some sort of?
I'm laughing at Mr. Murray because I'll be honest with you, after working in local government for almost 35 years, I'm not sure how assessors assess anything.
Sure.
And I admit that's my bias. And I've offended several assessors in my career by saying these things. But in my opinion, I think assessors can look at the income generated by a particular piece of property. It's only for the businesses. You can't do this for residential property, in my opinion. But they can look at the income that is generated by a particular business, and they can form a property assessment based on that. Now, to be honest with you, I'm out of my discipline here. This was very true in New Jersey, where I was very familiar with it. I'm not sure it works that way in New York, but I bet you it works that way a little bit. So theoretically, the income from a project that has 7 affordable units is going to be lower than a project that has no affordable units. So they shall take that into consideration.
There's no formal state formula.
That I don't know. If I had to guess, there probably is.
Okay.
And then there's,
Is there a hand up or is that? Okay, so Keith, I'm assuming you're here to make an official public comment during this public hearing. You could, did you want to specifically address this question as part of your public comment?
Sure, I'm happy to do that and happy to answer any questions the board has. So my name's Keith Leibold, and I'm the president and one of the owners of AHC, which is Affordable Housing Concepts, and we specialize in multifamily housing. A little bit more than half of our business is in affordable housing and various types, home ownership and rentals. And I'm one of the major principals in Zero Place. So I read, first I'll just make a few comments. I read over the proposed law, and here's my takeaway. The rents at 80% of median, even though you get bonus density to do them, are not a break even compared with the expenses for the developer. And the housing disparity is so bad in New Paltz. The rents in a normal environment should be within 20 or 30% of the market rate rents. So you'd lose a little bit of money, it wouldn't be a big deal. But like, for instance, in Zero Place, the delta on a 2-bedroom apartment is over $1,200 a month. In regard to the assessor, who's, I love the language, they shall, it's great language. Good luck trying to pigeonhole the assessor and what discount they're giving us for that. Because I went in and showed her that, in fact, the affordable apartments are a net nothing to us. So if they're a net nothing, there should be no taxes. And yet, you know, it took 2 years of a lawsuit against the assessor to get our assessment lowered to a reasonable level. And even that, we're paying about $350 a month a unit just in taxes. of which the village is getting this little tiny portion. And that's a different conversation, I guess. So if you're going to lower those rents more, and I don't disagree with the need side of this, by the way, there needs to come up with a methodology that it doesn't deter development in the village, because we do need affordable housing and we need quite a bit of it. Regarding the two projects that were approved, we'll see if they get built and in what form. I'll just tell you, I've been contacted by them already to see if I had interest in them. At the current interest rates, I don't know how they're going to provide the equity to build them. To be honest with you, that's like, we're unable to build market rate units right now because of the interest environment. So helping these developers, and I think the county's doing a bowman's job with their affordable housing fund, that's very helpful in this scenario because it provides a subsidy to the developer to build that affordable housing unit, so he doesn't have the debt load that corresponds, with the lower rent. So that's very helpful, and I'd be happy to work with Terry and look at some models, that make it so we can have more affordable housing in the village that's not state funded. So they're not fully affordable, like you're blending them in, but provides a pathway of, I'm just going to say break even, because you're giving them bonus density to build them. So if we get them to break even, it's like, look, this is your public good for your for-profit housing, but we're going to make sure it's not a detriment.
Keith, I want to jump in. So I have a question
Sure.
though about the bonus density, because that was written before we made changes to our zoning districts, NBR Gateway and B2. I believe that bonus density made more sense when we had the older zoning district language, and like it could continue to make sense in the R3, for instance.
Okay.
It might be something that we need to update while we're making this amendment.
Yeah, I mean, if you up density to the point where the bonus doesn't make sense anymore, this is like the sales pitch, right? How do you sell it? For me coming in, if I hear that there's a bonus density to build these affordable units, it's a lot easier on the palate, because I'm getting a bonus to do it, rather than me feeling like, this is the density, but you're taking some of my units away to make affordable housing. I don't know. It could just be how I'm looking at it, because at the end of the day, it's the same number of units.
Well, I think the issue is that the way the zoning districts, like in the former B2, the way it
Right.
used to work is you had to be mindful of the lot size and how many units you could construct. Whereas now the language is agnostic to how many units. It's simply
Okay.
about, do you have enough parking? Are the side yards and backyards
Sure.
and front yard setbacks okay? So that's why I feel like we probably need, and maybe put this, Terry, when you guys look at this, I really wonder, is the density bonus still a bonus? Might not be.
Yeah. Well, if the language is agnostic on density and it's based on, the availability of the parking, I mean, depending on what the trustees see as the parking need versus the planning board, I think that's great. I can tell you the shared parking plan that we produced for Zero Place has worked really well. We went through a long period where we actually counted spots, because we have the video cameras, and we had several points during the week where we did the spots, and that, much to my surprise, the study the engineer did played out almost to par. So I was very pleased with that, and we haven't had any parking issues there. So that's good that, you know, you can go to a share park type of model and it actually works.
Right, we worked on that matrix in the zoning, and
Yeah.
I think it makes a good deal of sense.
I just wanted to say kudos. It works, you know. So I understand the need for the 40% and 50% of median, but that's where we tend to go to 100% affordable project where you can get, like we're doing at 52 South Manheim, where you can get the large subsidies and have the rents that really are appropriate for somebody on a 40% of median income. But it leaves very little when you go through property operations, as we've reviewed, Mayor, that there's just not a lot left for taxes or much of anything at that level.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that you're interested in working with Terry and his colleagues on the Affordable Housing Board. That will be great, because so we plan to keep this public hearing open for at a minimum of several more meetings, so we can get this right and receive more feedback. Do we have any other comments regarding the amendments? Thank you. Thanks, Terry. So I'm going to propose we keep this open. Then we just go ahead and just jump right into our business agenda, right? Oh, yeah, we didn't do any public comments at all. Did you want to make a public comment? Are you here to make a comment about any other topic?
Yes, my question answered. I had called to find out how come we didn't have any decorations or anything in the village this year? Why our town was so dark?
Our DPW did put holiday flags alternating with US flags, yes.
That was our,
So there's a committee and there's a lack of volunteers.
they
And-
said this last year, and I
You're right.
called and I said, fine, here's my name, call me, I will help. I received no call this year.
I hear you.
And if that's what we're calling decorations, Joe,
There's also one other factor, which is that when the poles were replaced on Main Street by Central Hudson, there's no power for us to connect to. Bill is working on that, and we are trying to move on it for next year, but there's no place to plug anything into. That's why last year's try at solar didn't work out so great, because we can't plug in. We had to try some other.
so we won't be having decorations.
No, and also what's really important is it's not just we, right? So communities, local government doesn't generally do decorations. Local government will facilitate in partnership with volunteers and community members and businesses. So we've heard from many businesses and made sure that they had contacts who could help facilitate contacts from, for instance, the DPW, the Department of Public Works individuals. So like I can share with you that Deb Roush, the owner of the wine store downtown, she's very interested in this project. If you know Deb, contact her directly. There are a lot of people who are talking about this, and it will be really those people getting together to work on this.
So how do we start this? I mean,
There's
who's the
something-
person I should be getting in touch with?
There's something called a community improvement team, which seems to me is mostly run out of the town. Am I incorrect on that?
And who's in charge of that?
It's a town committee.
And
Okay,
I,
what is that?
it
I'm sorry.
was, well, the town and the village have separate governments, even though we work together. So, last I heard, Alex Bear was the council person who was from the town, who was on that.
The town told me I had to come to the village to get my answer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It's frustrating too.
Right.
I can
So,
totally understand what
so
you're
then
saying.
I would talk to Deb Roush at the wine store.
That was the wine store right here by the post office?
Yes.
Okay, so she's the one who's gonna be handling
She
this
had,
next year.
I met with Deb last week. She's very interested in working on it. Bill is also gonna be trying to work with any volunteers that are interested.
I mean, do we have any money in the kitty for this year?
It's
or-
not about money. It's not
It's
about,
not about
it is
money.
not about money.
So why is that?
We spent several thousands of dollars last year on decorations.
What do we spend
It's-
this year on it?
There
With
was
those,
no
with
one-
those
there was no
flags
one-
we
People,
had.
it's,
What is your name?
My name is Leila.
I'm Michelle.
Hi,
So
Michelle.
this is my last meeting as a village trustee because my term is up.
Okay,
And I want to volunteer on this committee. So let's,
so do I.
I mean, I think, you know, a lot of folks, and it's not for lack of not wanting it.
Mhm.
I just was unable to contribute any time to it because I just didn't have time. But now that I am no longer a trustee, I would like to move forward. And it's just something that us as volunteers are gonna have to figure out something for every month, like not just talk about it in December.
Right.
So, let's
Well, wait,
both talk to
We
Deb
all know
and we'll
that
move
December
forward.
is where everyone gets together. That's the joy
Yeah,
of
but
the
it has to
whole
be
year.
planned ahead of
Wait
time.
for Christmas.
Yeah, but we have to plan all before it, so we are ready.
Okay,
That's
okay.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because if we only talk about it in December, then
Exactly.
it's gone.
right, and
Exactly.
people are already working on it now with the anticipation of doing the work first quarter of 24,
Okay,
because
so
that's how you,
So the person to get in touch with is the one and the one, and you're gonna be involved in this
Yeah,
too?
so let's
Okay.
make it happen. for
I
next
would love
year.
to make it happen. I
Thank
would
you.
love to make it happen.
Appreciate you coming
Okay.
forward to help. That's really great. I really
Thank you.
Just,
Yes.
Get your email.
Sure.
Should write it down here. Thank you.
But I do want to say, so many of the businesses in town have decorated and it looks so
They,
beautiful.
yes, yes,
Mhm.
they did a fantastic job. They
And I
really
do
did.
thank our DPW for putting the flags up and decorating the tree and having the menorah out front. And, I think we can certainly bring more light into the community.
When I first came here, 16 years ago, this town used to be spectacular. I mean, you'd drive down the streets and everything was lit up.
Let's take that vision next
I
year.
would like to take that
Okay.
vision next year.
Is that a G?
That's a G.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna leave now.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay, so the next item, so we have. So we have a list recognition of volunteers. I have to pull it up. I'm glad the town let us know about that. That was amazing. Can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Got it. So are you gonna read them?
I'm gonna try to pull it up, Stana. I'll let you go ahead and read
You
it.
have it.
Nope, you can read it.
All right. We would like to thank our wonderful volunteers and from the Affordable Housing Board Chair Terry Dolan, who we just had here. Goodness, I don't know how to pronounce everyone's name. Sorry. John Gerlico, Deacon Bill Menenga, Adele Ruger, Deputy Clerk, and Michelle Zip for being the village board liaison. The Bike Ped Committee, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, Chair Dan Lipson, Judy Mage, Stephen O'Shea, Richard Fuhr, Town Member Mark Ives, Town Member Janelle Piotr, Town Member Michael Weed. And we currently have vacancies on both of those boards. Board of Ethics, Chair Dennis Young, Eugene Heath, Caitlin Galucci, Cody Schatzel, and Municipal Employee Seguin. Climate Smart Task Force Coordinator, Dr. Yvonne Posey. Task Force members, Joe Londa, Mark Varian, Jim O'Dowd, Arel Fair, Janelle Piotr, Dylan Moscaso, Izzy DeFino, and members at large Liz Elkin, Lynn Cherry, Megan Wolf, and Village Liaison Alex Wojcik. Environmental Policy Board Chair Ted Nitza, Rachel Lagodka, Jessica McGovern, Greg Van Puxton, sorry, and Village Board Liaison Alex Wojcik. Does anybody want to take over and do some more of these, or should I keep going?
You can keep going.
All right, and we have a vacancy on the Environmental Policy Board as well. I hope somebody will come step up to join. The Design and Review Board and Historical Preservation Commission Chair Tom Olson, Stephen Cook, Camilla Nagy, Michael Zeeler, Shane Reedy, George Seafrey is an alternate, and Secretary Valerie McAllister, the Village Board Liaison Bill Murray. And again, we have an alternate vacancy. The Landlord Tenant Relations Council, Eli Godwin, Anthony Saraceno, Teresa Thompson, Christina Florakis, Duncan Dempsey, and we have vacancies for town, one town and one
And landlord.
landlord. Oh, tenant
Tenant.
landlord, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
looking at like, and an alternate as well. And with Village Board Liaison, Alex Wojcik. Planning Board Chair, Zach Bielecki. Is that right? Rich Soto, Rachel Lagodka. Where am I? Am I not seeing something? Oh, it's up on the right. Okay, Terry Dolan, Amy Cohen, Ellen Rocco, who's an alternate, and Vicky Beach, who we just appointed as an alternate with Village Board Liaison Bill Murray. Public Access Television, Bob Fagan, Joe Davis, Anton Stewart, Jason Warren, and Village Board Liaison Michelle Zip. Shade Tree Commission Chair, Interim Chair, Neil Batez, Ryan McClintock, Mary Eisenhandler, Christine Marmo, Shelley Ottens, and the deputy clerk is in there. And
It's
those-
just Mark Eisenhandler.
I'm sorry,
Mark Eisenhandler.
did I say that wrong? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mark.
It's okay.
Village Board Liaison, Michelle Zip. And the ZBA or Zoning Board of Appeals, Anthony Saraceno, Cody Clausen, Sean O'Sullivan, Noah Simmons. And we have a vacancy for a full member and a couple of alternates. And thanks to Tim for being the liaison when I couldn't, because I had liaisons for two different things on the same night.
So much all of our volunteers.
Yeah, thanks, volunteers. And we're gonna post that. Just post that and share. You had another idea of what we were doing with that? That I thought was interesting. You explained it to me today.
Share it to let the world know, anybody that's missed the list, that they should shop.
That's right. If there was anyone missed, right? Because there very well may have been oversight. So we want to make sure.
Can I add, thank you to our volunteer fire company,
Yes.
particularly for this year, because we've had one of the busiest years in many years. Lots of
Thank you,
activity
Bill.
going on. And in particular, shout out to Chiefs Worthman, Pat Koch, and Mike Cavaldo. It's been a real challenge this year, I have to say, and they deserve, as well as all the members of the fire company.
Thank you.
If they could be added, I'm sorry to.
Great.
Right. So that's our first example of something that we overlooked. And we may have overlooked others. So we just wanted to make it really clear that this is not an official list, but it's our attempt to be thankful, and there'll probably be some other names we will add.
And we're still going to be doing certificates for people.
I don't know about that.
Or is that the end of their series? We'll talk about it. Okay.
Okay, so the next item is, we have a statement urging hostage release, ceasefire, and peace. I'm gonna let you take that, Stana.
I'm reading all the things, okay. Village of New Paltz call for a real and lasting ceasefire from Israel and Hamas. As per the House of Representatives proposed resolution 786, we call on President Joseph Biden to promptly send and facilitate the entry of humanitarian assistance into Gaza, to demand the unconditional release of all hostages, and to call for a real and lasting ceasefire from Israel and Hamas. In addition, the United Nations should call for the dismantling of Hamas so they may be replaced with empowered Palestinians who seek peace and stability in the region, for Israel to end its occupation of the Palestinian territories, and for President Benjamin Netanyahu to resign, to allow for Israeli leaders who steadfastly believe in a two-state solution or other pathways toward mutual understanding, recognition, and representation, so to bring an enduring peace. And the village clerk is directed to share this, a copy of this statement with all of our elected representatives.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I move that we accept the statement,
Second.
adopt it. Any further discussion?
Thank you so much for working on this, all of you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. We did well at that.
Okay, the next item was just, we put this on as a placeholder. Do we need to have any additional conversation about the possible amendments to the affordable housing law? I felt like, you know, it's great that Terry and Keith are involved early, and you know, any further massaging to the amendment will hopefully take place at the upcoming Affordable Housing Board meeting, and we'll have additional feedback come January. Do we get any other conversation tonight?
I think for me, when Terry mentioned the what is it, the fixtures differences in the units, I just want to perhaps be mindful of that, because there was a little confusion with Zero Place, and it was just because the use of the gym and the rooftop was $50 per month extra for those who have affordable housing units. But the confusion was that everyone was required to pay the $50 extra, the other tenants that were not under affordable housing. So I think
So they could opt in.
they could opt, yes, thank you. So the affordable housing folks could opt in, but the other folks could not opt out.
Right.
And so, makes sense. I think it was just unclear. So I just wanted to mention that sometimes there's just clarity, and sometimes when things aren't clear, it breeds confusion and anger, and that hopefully can be avoided.
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that. I was under the impression that the apartments are supposed to be indistinguishable.
That was
Yeah.
as well.
I remember that being a big part of the spirit of that discussion when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have to take a closer look at that, because I
Yeah.
did not realize that you could propose different fixtures.
Yeah, I don't think that's kosher.
Right, so we have to
Is
have.
that in our law?
Right, so we have a statement within our sentence in there. All apartments and applies are like every other apartment, something along those lines.
I thought that's the way it was, so I'm surprised that that is not the case.
Because that came up last night.
Okay,
Appliances and amenities.
Both developers were like, yeah, we assumed that's what it was going to be, but I think we need to.
seems very odd.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna wait for next time to continue that conversation. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item is related to the vacancy study that we performed recently. So we had a fairly what I thought was detailed conversation. We did not get too in the weeds on the vacancy study. And there had been discussions in our community about the vacancy study itself. And I didn't want to get involved in like dissecting the study at our last meeting, but I feel like it's pretty clear that we need to do that. On December 6th and then again yesterday, I've spoken with the Deputy Commissioner and Deputy Bureau Chief from the State HCR Office of Rent Administration about our vacancy study. And they explained to me that it's really important that the numbers and the process is truly airtight. And when I explained to them that we were wrestling with a particular property that represents more than 50% of all the units that we were considering, we had it baked in as a 0% vacancy. And they said that could be problematic if that property owner had reasonable proof that they submitted their survey. And I felt like I have other concerns about EPTA, and I thought that's why we were having conversations about the unreasonable rent increase law. But it seems like that detail, that concern was really kind of lost within our community, or at least with some housing activists who thought that we were acting without courage, or we should be shamed. And I really took significant offense to that, because I actually pick up the phone and I talk to the people who run these programs for New York State. And, you know, using the numbers that were submitted by the property owner at New Paltz Apartments, this is north of a 5% number as far as vacancies of these approximately 10 properties that were included. And there's other interesting things in terms of like two of the properties, one was a former hotel, one was a former motel. The building department files, show how those certificate of occupancies, when they were converted to rental apartments happened after 1974. One was 1975, the other was in the 90s. And you're going to run it where we will run into issues where property owners can go ahead and approach the Office of Rent Administration and ask for their properties to be exempt from the Tenant Protection Act. And when they can cite that there have been substantial rehabilitations. So I feel like this study was a useful exercise, but I also did not want to get in the weeds last time, and that it also, I felt like what we produced would not, even if I felt strongly about EPTA, I would not, Emergency Tenant Protection Act, I would not feel comfortable using it as a study to move forward and declare that we have a housing emergency. It simply does not meet the state standards. And I feel like that was the message that I received from New York State. And that's my interpretation of following this process. I just do not think that it meets the state standards. And I feel like it's a pretty black and white situation. But I just wanted to share that publicly, because I really did not appreciate being accused of being cowardly, or that we were being irresponsible, or that we should be feeling shameful.
Thanks, Tim. I think it's unfortunate when folks who are so clearly on the same side of wanting to get more folks housed are use language like that against each other. I actually really liked the discussion we had with Keith Leibold, and how here he is a developer and he's understanding, you know, he's not the enemy of those who are renters. Instead, he's trying to find real solutions. And I think that's the difference, is that language of using kindness in your heart and just coming together to figure out a solution instead of fighting with each other. And, you know, if anything, I feel this board is just so thorough and thoughtful, especially when it comes to affordable housing.
Any other comments from the board?
Just quickly, there was a law that just passed by Senator Hinchey and delving into this and citing a fine if somebody doesn't answer, the landlord doesn't answer properly and whatnot. Does the state provide a guidance of forming itself a state form so that this is done uniformly across the state, or is it up to an individual municipality to create these surveys?
Yeah, there's no form provided. And so that's like when you go off of like, well, this held up in another municipality, so keep going with that, you know, and that's partially why like that law is so clutch to get passed, you know, because
I would think that if I were a landlord and I got a form from the state of New York that said, this is what this is,
yeah,
and there was some uniformity across the state, then that would have way more weight than the village of New Paltz.
Yeah.
That's a good point. If it was on like New York, if it felt like a New York State template of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a form from the IRS or this, you know, you pay attention to that and you're
like the
less
census.
likely to, you know, maybe not answer the form correctly.
Yeah.
Agreed. So much of housing law is like literally just case law, you know, like what gets fought out by like what players, you know, in which courts. And like that's a real shame, you know, and I think we just keep seeing that in real time at our table.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you brought up the law that Hinchey supported and that the governor signed into law, because I think it actually speaks to how important it is not to use 0% vacancy numbers, like when a landlord is, you know, trying to make sure that their data is being included. Another thing that I learned over the weekend that I was messaging with Alex about, because I was always under the impression that all landlords were required to pay interest for security deposits that were held. And, you know, we looked at the language and it says if a building has 6 or more units,
They're required.
they're required. But then I dug a little bit deeper, and what I learned, and I had this explained to me by an attorney who works in real estate, who said that if you have 5 or fewer units, you don't have to pay interest. However, if you put it in an interest-bearing account, you have to pay that interest less a fee. So like to his point, he's like, if you put it in a shoebox, you do not have to pay interest. But if you have more than 6 units, you have to figure out a way to provide interest. And none of this really mattered during the last several years when interest rates were basically nothing. And Keith is hoping they go back to nothing so that things can get built. But, you know, we live in a different interest rate environment now. But I just thought that was super interesting, because I was always under the impression that you had to pay interest. So it almost feels like, for all intents and purposes, you do, unless you intentionally don't put money in an interest-bearing account, or
Because you can't put security in a shoebox.
Okay.
I was gonna say, wait, like I don't think you can do that. I think you have to put in an account. So it's a matter of like which kind of account it is. I think that's
if it's a
why,
non-interest-bearing account, then you don't have to pay interest because you're not
Yeah.
receiving any interest, but you have to pay interest if it's 6 or more units.
yeah.
And.
I don't know that you're not required to put money in a shoebox, though.
Well, just in what Michelle brought up with Keith having the conversation with us here, I want to remind everybody that Keith is building 50 units of senior affordable housing. here.
51.
Well, no, the one is for is not
The
an affordable
staff,
housing
yeah.
unit, it's a staff, yeah.
So what the law is landlords, regardless of the number of units in the building, must treat the deposits as trust funds belonging to the tenants and may not commingle the deposits with their own money. So you wouldn't want to put it,
Shoe boxes?
yeah, like you really wouldn't want to put it under your bed, Tim. Like, yeah,
I think the shoebox example just speaks to like, clearly you're not earning interest.
yeah.
Like you don't have to pay interest if it's fewer than 6 units. Anything else on this? Okay, we skipped over item number 3. That's the payment in lieu of parkland for proposed apartment complexes at 145 North Chestnut and 137 North Chestnut. So we have the calculations for each of those. So 145, the payment in lieu of parkland ends up being $223,500. For 137, it's $165,750. So I believe the process involves us writing a resolution so that money can be collected, but we've already, well, I think we're waiting on the memo from the planning board to tell us to go ahead and move forward with that process.
Yeah.
So they agreed they're sending us a memo and we have a draft, but we don't have the full thing yet. So this is really just kind of a, you know, to a placeholder for subsequent meetings. Okay, next item, extending the deadline for the cannabis grower showcase. So there's been some discussions, some asks of New York State to extend showcases beyond the end of the year. I signed on to a letter with the town supervisor of Gardner and the mayor of Kingston, and then there may have been others. Actually, I spoke with someone in the cannabis industry who actually is in support of it, and his belief is that New York State is probably feeling uncomfortable about this because plenty of the showcases have been run in a perfectly okay ways, but others have not been. And I think that's what they're nervous about, you know, because I think what's super fascinating, like I went and looked at the building, the former Stewart's that has been approved to be a dispensary by our planning board. And the anticipation is that could open as soon as first quarter of next year. But it's really interesting when you look at like what is being required and constructed. Like it's really like the Fort Knox of dispensaries in terms of the process where you have to show ID and like all the security and all the product will be secured and the money will be secured. And so that seems to be the direction that New York State wants to go in. And, you know, as we've described many times before, the idea of the showcase is to provide a safety valve while the licensing process was happening. But it does seem like it would be really nice for farmers and growers to do things that feel like farmers markets. So I'm still good with officially asking, but I was just adding a little color as to why, because at first glance, it seems like, of course, why not? But from what I understand, that it might be a trickier decision for New York State to make.
Because of other municipalities, not ours.
Not ours, and
Not even municipalities.
Or, but yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, you know, MRTA, like the law, like there's a whole plan, you know, and so like I could see why the state would be nervous and wanting to kind of shut the door on this temporary thing. But I would like to continue it a little longer because, you know, we're still not seeing like relief otherwise happening fast enough for those farmers who, you know, were basically stockpiling crops for a while.
Right.
unless OCM issues tons of licenses.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, it's been really good here. It's,
Yeah.
you know, we've gotten a lot of revenue for the village and town and the county.
By the
And
state.
the state, and we have had success, like there've been we haven't seen anything negative happen. We haven't had any
Knock on
issues
wood.
whatsoever, and they've been really easy to work with. And, you know, we've got a great bunch that we're working with.
Yeah, and I saw in the presentation from the Cannabis Control Board, they were excited that there was $5 million of pre-tax sales through the end of November. And during that same time period, the showcase here on Village Hall represented 20% of sales across the entire state.
Holy moly.
I like that slide, yeah. Well, we were, you know, first in the state, first in the nation.
Proud of that.
Yeah.
And really excited that we're having a justice
Yeah.
based seller going into that space at the old Stewart's.
Has there been any word when this decision will be made? I mean, it's just days away, right? So. I think it's
Yeah,
10 days away. There's a holiday coming up.
yeah,
That's why I think to your point, like MRTA is like this very clear plan, and this wasn't in the initial plan, so it's weird to make amendments.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is like the decision being made. I don't think it's like there's even a decision before a body, like
Yeah.
really, you know, like there is, but it's not like there's like a bill waiting or anything. You know, it would just be exactly like the creation of it, you know, like creative, temporary working around.
and it's created jobs here locally, like it's done
Yeah.
well good. So hopefully.
But if
we can have it
OCM
until we get a brick and mortar.
Right,
Yeah.
if OCM issues licenses, then that will also help significantly too.
Exactly.
So we have language for a letter to sign on to. Should we sign on to it as a village board? I think that's why this is on.
We do.
Do we have
Second.
Do we have a letter? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we have language or a letter from, or basically we have a press release that we could sign
Yeah.
into
That's right.
from
Yeah,
that Rick. So we'll sign on to it as a village board.
Sounds awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Spectrum senior discounts, you've worked on that a bit, Bill, you want to explain?
Sure, the senior credit or the credit for seniors who are customers of Spectrum, if you're 65 years and older and have paid your bill 12 months in a row consecutively and on time fully, you're eligible for a credit. We have a email address that we've set up. It's called cablecredit@villageofnewpaltz.org. If you're interested in receiving information and to apply for that credit, you can email us and we'll get back to you. Once we have your responses from the questionnaire that we'll send to you, we then will forward you to the Spectrum representatives, and the Spectrum representatives will take it from there. That's the plan.
Sounds good. Thank you for working on that. I know our seniors appreciate it, and we should make sure that it's widely known so more can participate and take advantage of that discount.
Yeah, I'll be doing some, social media outreach and that kind of thing.
Great.
I'd love to share that too. We should all be sharing that. Modesty.
So we have a resolution regarding the CDBG project 131-23. We have two resolutions. One's regarding compliance officer and the other is labor standards. I move that we approve both of them.
Okay.
All in favor? I move that we approve bills and claims. All in favor? PBVB liaison update.
Yeah, the planning board met last night, so what was discussed earlier. There's a new application for 46 Church Street, new construction for a new house. Also, there's what else was it? The 5 Church Street application was approved to do a change of use for that that building. And that's essentially it. We've made mention of the public hearings earlier, so. And the Ulster County Planning Board has not met since the meeting I missed last week.
What's coming in next to the youth center?
Next to this.
Oh, yeah, what is,
Oh, it's an expansion of a property, and that's a business, is an office.
They put in lovely windows.
Yeah, we talked a great deal.
lovely or
about
ugly?
Lovely.
Yeah,
I thought it looked nice.
yeah, that went through our design review board.
Oh, wow.
Historic preservation, and they work very closely with the architect and the owners. Of the
What
building.
business is going in there?
I believe there's a law office.
Okay.
And I forget, but professional office, what's going on there.
My kids were hoping for a coffee shop.
Already.
They saw the windows, they're like, I see a coffee shop, but it looks nice, what's so far going on.
Very attractive.
Sounds good. I don't have a ZBA update. Oh, and we need to thank Michelle. This is her final meeting, so we have a card as well as a
Thank
birthday
you.
present.
Are we supposed to open it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, I'm gonna get emotional. I'm just gonna skim this and read properly later. Thank you.
Good, good.
Oh, thank you. How awesome. Thank you. What is it?
Christmas.
Christmas cactus.
Oh,
It's a succulent.
thank
They're
you
not
so
hard to take care
much.
of.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Very nice. Thanks for serving 4 years on the
Yeah.
Village Board.
Thanks, Michelle. For
Thank you.
unprecedented times. How many times we hear that phrase?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I learned so much, but I feel like I've only like touched upon what's possible to learn because
Mhm.
there's so much. But yeah, I mean, I think the big thing I learned is how slow government moves,
Mhm.
but also liking how slow we move as a board and how you all really are so thoughtful and in everything. And I think that's so important because when you're here making big changes, you want to be thoughtful about it. It shouldn't happen quick. I have to remind my kids all the time, you know, TikTok and social media, everything happens so fast.
Mhm.
And that's not always a healthy way to conduct business, especially as a village. But yeah, and honestly, all the behind the scenes work that you all do, especially Mayor Tim and Autumn and Laura Autumn, Ariana, just and our DPW and our Nancy and everybody in the village offices, you know, all the work they do to keep everything going. So thank you all for that.
You will be missed, Michelle.
We know where you live.
That's true. Here at the table every day.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
Second.
Good night.
Bye.